Most people don't stop, not because they're cruel, but because they're tired, afraid, or in a hurry. On a hot Texas highway, 3 golden retriever puppies were left to die. Cars passed. Life kept moving. But one woman stopped, and that quiet choice reminded the world of something it had nearly forgotten. Justice doesn't always arrive with sirens or courtrooms. Sometimes it begins with a simple refusal to walk away. Watch this story to the end. And tell us in the comments, what city are you watching from? Because kindness still lives wherever someone is willing to stop. The Texas summer pressed down on the highway like a weight, heat shimmering above the asphalt, the air thick with dust, gasoline, and the sharp smell of burning rubber. The chase ended without warning. A pickup truck swerved violently ahead, tires screaming as it cut across 2 lanes. Sirens wailed somewhere behind it, faint but unmistakable. For a split second, something small and pale tumbled from the open back of the truck, striking the road and rolling toward the shoulder like discarded cargo. Then there were 3. 3 golden retriever puppies lay scattered along the edge of the highway, their bodies skidding across blistering asphalt before collapsing into the gravel. The truck disappeared into traffic. The sirens faded. The road reclaimed its rhythm. One puppy did not move at all. His small chest barely rose, each breath shallow and uneven. His golden fur darkened with dust and streaked with blood. Another tried to stand, then screamed, a thin, broken sound, as one hind leg folded beneath him at an unnatural angle. The third dragged himself weakly toward the shade of a bent road sign, tongue lolling, eyes glassy from heat and shock. The sun was merciless. Their fur, once soft and pale, was matted, filthy, clinging to their skin with sweat, oil, and grit. Tiny paws burned against the asphalt. Their bodies trembled, not from cold, but from the overwhelming heat that sucked moisture from their lungs and strength from their limbs. Cars passed. A sedan slowed slightly, then accelerated. A delivery van swerved around them without braking. Someone honked. Someone else shouted, though the words were lost to the wind. No one stopped. To the world, they were an inconvenience, a hazard, something unfortunate but easy to avoid. Emma Parker saw them in her peripheral vision. She was driving southbound, windows down because the air conditioning in her aging sedan had failed months ago. At 28, Emma had learned to tolerate discomfort. She had grown up in West Texas heat, learned early that endurance mattered more than complaint. Emma was slender, average height, with sun-warmed skin and a faint scattering of freckles across her nose that never quite faded, no matter how much makeup she used on camera. Her brown hair, usually pulled into a low, practical ponytail, hung loose today, damp with sweat. There were dark circles beneath her eyes, the kind that came from long nights and restless sleep rather than age. She worked as a field reporter for a small local news station, one of those stations that survived on community stories and short investigative pieces that never quite reached the national stage. Emma was known in the newsroom for being stubborn, not loud, not aggressive, but persistent in a quiet way that unsettled people. That persistence came from somewhere deep. Years ago, she had watched her father walk past a car wreck on a rural road without stopping. "Someone else will handle it," he had said. "It's not our problem." She never forgot the way those words sat heavy in her chest, how later she learned a man had died waiting for help that never came. Emma had not spoken about that day in years, but moments like this had a way of pulling memories to the surface. Her foot hovered over the brake. Traffic rushed behind her. The rational part of her mind screamed warnings. It's dangerous. You'll cause an accident. Someone else will stop. She told herself the same thing she had told herself before. The same thing everyone told themselves. Then she saw the smallest puppy lift his head. Just barely. His eyes, large, dark, and unfocused, locked onto her windshield. There was no fear in them, no pleading, just exhaustion so deep it looked like surrender. Emma slammed on the brakes. Her car jerked violently. Horns blared behind her. She pulled onto the shoulder, heart hammering, palm slick against the steering wheel. For a moment, she sat frozen, the heat pressing in, the noise roaring around her. Then she opened the door. The heat hit her like a wall. The smell reached her first hot asphalt, gasoline, blood, and something else. The unmistakable scent of fear. She jogged toward the puppies, shoes crunching over gravel, her shadow falling across their trembling bodies. "Oh my God," she whispered. Up close, they were even smaller than she had thought. No more than 8 weeks old. Their ribs were faintly visible beneath their dirty fur, their bodies all angles and softness, built for play not survival. The one with the broken leg whimpered when she knelt beside him. His coat was a deeper gold, almost honey-colored. His ears flopped forward as he tried again, uselessly, to stand. Tears pricked Emma's eyes as she reached out, careful, slow. "I've got you," she murmured, though she had no idea if she did. The second puppy, the smallest, lay on his side, chest fluttering rapidly. His fur was pale cream, nearly white beneath the grime. Emma pressed 2 fingers gently against his ribs, counting breaths, panic rising when they came too fast, too shallow. The third puppy had crawled as far as he could toward the shade, leaving a faint trail in the dust. He lifted his head weakly when Emma approached, tail twitching once before falling still. His eyes were dull but alert, watching her with something that looked dangerously like hope. Emma swallowed hard. She had covered fires, car crashes, courtrooms filled with grief. But this was different. These were lives that had never had a chance to be anything but innocent. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. She ignored it. Carefully, she shrugged out of her light jacket, spreading it on the ground to shield them from the burning surface. She poured the last of her water bottle onto her hands and dabbed it gently along their necks and bellies, whispering nonsense words meant to soothe more than inform. Cars continued to pass. Some slowed, some didn't. Emma became painfully aware of how exposed she was, kneeling inches from traffic, her car parked precariously behind her, hazard lights blinking uselessly in the sun. Fear crawled up her spine, but she pushed it down. "You stop," she thought, "or you become everyone else." The smallest puppy let out a sound so faint it was almost imagined. Emma's chest tightened. She reached for her phone again, this time dialing with shaking fingers, eyes never leaving the 3 fragile bodies in front of her. As the call connected, Emma looked down at them, sweat dripping from her chin onto the dirt, heart pounding with a terrible, undeniable realization. If she walked away now, they would die. And she was standing at the exact moment where choosing not to look away would change everything. Emma drove faster than she should have. The highway lights blurred past as her hands tightened around the steering wheel, knuckles pale. The back seat of her car had become an improvised refuge, old towels, her jacket, the last shade she could offer. Every bump in the road made her flinch, afraid the motion alone might be enough to stop a heart already struggling. The smallest puppy barely moved. His body was frighteningly light when she lifted him, as if too much of him had already been burned away by the heat. The one with the broken leg cried softly with every turn. The third stayed silent, eyes open, watching her as if memorizing her face. "Just hold on," Emma whispered, though the words felt fragile, almost dishonest. The veterinary clinic appeared like a low, glowing island in the dark white walls, a green cross flickering above the entrance. Emma skidded into the parking lot and jumped out before the car fully stopped. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of antiseptic and metal. A woman emerged from behind the counter at the sound of the door. Sarah Collins, the on-call veterinarian, was in her late 30s, tall and lean, with a posture that suggested years spent standing through long shifts. Her blonde hair was pulled into a tight, practical bun, a few loose strands escaping around a face marked by exhaustion rather than age. Her skin was pale, freckled along the forearms where her sleeves were rolled up. Her eyes, sharp, gray-blue, took in details quickly, professionally. "What happened?" Sarah asked, already moving forward. Emma tried to explain all at once, words tumbling over each other, but Sarah was already kneeling, hands gentle and precise as she assessed the puppies. "Heat exposure," she said calmly. "Trauma. One fractured hind limb. This one's breathing is shallow." Her voice never rose, never faltered. Emma noticed how that steadiness anchored the room. They moved fast. Steel tables, bright lights. The puppies were taken from Emma's arms one by one, and with each separation, her chest tightened as if something essential were being peeled away. She hovered uselessly near the wall, arms wrapped around herself, watching strangers work to keep 3 lives alive. Sarah returned after what felt like hours, but could not have been more than minutes. She wiped her hands on a towel, her expression careful. "They're critical," she said. "All 3, the smallest one especially, severe dehydration. Possible internal injury. I won't lie to you, the odds aren't good." Emma nodded, though her vision blurred. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "I'll sign anything." Sarah studied her for a moment. She had seen people like Emma before, shaken, driven by adrenaline and guilt, convinced that love alone could defy biology. She did not judge her for it. "We'll start fluids immediately," Sarah said. "X-rays, oxygen support. But you should understand, sometimes wanting isn't enough." Emma swallowed hard. "I understand." But she didn't. Not really. The paperwork felt endless. Forms acknowledging risk, consent for procedures that might not save them, lines that asked for a name beside the word owner. Emma hesitated there. "I'm not their owner," she said quietly. Sarah met her eyes. "You're here. That counts for something." Emma signed. Hours passed in fragments plastic chairs, vending machine coffee that tasted like burnt regret, the hum of fluorescent lights. Emma sat hunched forward, elbows on her knees, phone resting uselessly in her hands. She thought about calling the newsroom, then decided against it. This wasn't a story, not yet. Still, when she lifted her phone, it wasn't to make a call. She opened the camera and recorded the empty hallway, the closed treatment room door, her own voice barely steady as she whispered the time and date. Proof. Evidence. A record that these lives had existed. The puppies were returned to her one by one, wrapped in blankets, tubes and bandages threading from their small bodies like fragile lifelines. The smallest one's temperature was still unstable. The third had internal bruising that could worsen without warning. "Name them," Sarah said suddenly. Emma looked up. "What?" "It helps," Sarah said. "For you, and sometimes for them." Emma looked down at the three small shapes pressed together for warmth. The palest one stirred slightly, nose twitching. "Sonny," Emma said softly. The one with the broken leg shifted, stubborn even through pain. "Daisy." Her gaze lingered on the quiet one, the one who had crawled, who had watched her with eyes that refused to close. "Chance." Sarah nodded. "All right, Sonny, Daisy, and Chance." The names settled into the room, making the puppies feel less like patients and more like beings with futures. Night stretched thin. Emma refused to leave. She sat beside their enclosure, fingers wrapped around the edge, listening to the steady beep of monitors and the faint sound of breathing. Every rise and fall of their chests felt like a personal victory. Every pause sent her heart racing. Somewhere near dawn, the smallest puppy's breathing faltered. Sarah moved instantly, hands sure, voice calm, as she adjusted tubes and called for assistance. Emma stood frozen, nails digging into her palms, unable to look away. Minutes passed, or seconds. She wasn't sure. When Sarah finally stepped back, her face unreadable, Emma's knees nearly gave out. "They're still with us," Sarah said quietly, "for now." The sun rose outside the clinic windows, pale and indifferent. Emma watched the light creep across the floor, exhaustion pressing down on her, fear coiling tight in her chest. She had saved them from the road, but she didn't know if she had saved them from death. By mid-morning, Emma's phone would not stop vibrating. She sat on a plastic chair outside the treatment room, sunlight spilling through the clinic windows, her legs aching from a night without sleep. The screen lit up again and again, missed calls, messages, notifications piling faster than she could read them. She hadn't planned to publish anything yet, but sometime before dawn, running on exhaustion and instinct, she had uploaded a short clip. The empty highway shoulder, the trembling puppies wrapped in blankets, her own voice low and unpolished as she stated the facts. No music, no commentary, just truth. It was enough. Thousands of shares, comments flooding in from across Texas. People recognized the stretch of road, the time, the heat. Donations began appearing in small amounts, at first $5, 10 then larger sums from strangers who wrote only a sentence: "Please let them live." Emma stared at the numbers with disbelief. She had covered viral stories before, but never like this, never something so close that her hands still smelled faintly of antiseptic and dust. Inside the clinic, Sonny shifted. It was small, barely noticeable, but Emma saw it through the glass. The pale puppy's chest rose more steadily now, his head tilting just enough to seek warmth. Sarah Collins noticed too. She smiled briefly, tight, cautious, but real. "That's movement," Sarah said. "It matters." Daisy, her leg immobilized in a temporary splint, dragged herself forward when Emma entered the room. She moved awkwardly, stubborn as a tide, golden fur still clumped and stained. When she reached Emma's shoe, she pressed her nose against it and stayed there, breathing. Emma crouched, throat tight. "You're not supposed to do that yet," she whispered, though her hand shook as she reached down. Chance did not move. He lay on his side, oxygen lines secured gently along his muzzle, eyes half-lidded. His breathing was shallow but regular, each rise of his ribs a measured effort. Sarah had warned Emma not to expect visible improvement. Internal injuries could take days to reveal their truth. Emma stayed anyway. By noon, the clinic had a small crowd outside, not protesters' supporters, people holding coffee cups, signs scribbled hastily on cardboard. A man in a ball cap dropped off a bag of towels. A woman left a handwritten note taped to the door. Emma watched from inside, overwhelmed. She wasn't used to this kind of attention. In the newsroom, she was often overlooked, too serious, too quiet, too unwilling to simplify stories for easy sound bites. Her editor, Tom Gallagher, called just after lunch. Tom was in his early 50s, broad-shouldered, with a permanent crease between his brows, gray hair cropped close. Years covering crime and politics had left him cynical but not cruel. He spoke bluntly, valued facts, and distrusted sentiment. "Emma," he said, voice measured, "what did you start?" She braced herself. "It's real," she said. "I was there." "I know," Tom replied. "That's the problem. This thing's everywhere. If you keep pushing it, we need to be sure." "Sure of what?" "Sure it doesn't push back." Emma closed her eyes. "They were stolen, Tom. I can feel it. No one dumps purebred golden retriever puppies by accident." There was a pause. Tom exhaled. "Then you better be right." That afternoon, Emma requested the incident report from the highway patrol. It took longer than expected. When it finally arrived, she read it twice, then a third time. Vehicle fled. Cargo lost. No suspects identified. Cargo. The word sat wrong with her. She noticed something else, a minor detail, easy to miss. The report listed 2 similar incidents from nearby counties in the past 6 months. Puppies found near roadways. No follow-up. No connections drawn. Emma's pulse quickened. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a donation notification. "Unknown number. Stop digging," the message read. "You got your feel-good story. Walk away." Her stomach dropped. She didn't respond. Instead, she saved the message, took a screenshot, then another arrived. "Some things don't belong to you." Emma looked around the clinic, the sleeping puppies, Sarah adjusting a monitor, the quiet hum of machines keeping fragile bodies alive. Fear crept in, cold and unwelcome. She had expected pushback from officials. Not this. That night, Sonny drank water on his own for the first time. Daisy barked once a hoarse, defiant sound that startled everyone in the room. Even Sarah laughed, surprised. Chance remained unchanged. Emma sat beside him long after visiting hours ended, fingers curled against the edge of the enclosure, whispering stories he couldn't hear. About blue skies, about grass that didn't burn, about names and futures and all the things he hadn't been promised yet. Outside, another message arrived. Last warning. Emma didn't delete it. She opened her camera instead, documenting the screens, the tubes, the tiny rise and fall of Chance's chest. She understood now that this was bigger than 3 puppies. Someone wanted this buried. And Emma had already gone too far to pretend she hadn't noticed. The first meeting with the police took place in a windowless room that smelled faintly of old coffee and paper. Detective Marcus Reed sat across from Emma, forearms resting on the table, fingers loosely interlaced. He was in his early 40s, tall and broad-shouldered, with a weathered face shaped by years under the Texas sun. His dark hair was cut short, already graying at the temples, and a rough shadow of stubble clung to his jaw, suggesting sleep had not come easily in a long time. His eyes were steady, observant, the kind that measured people before trusting them. Reed had spent most of his career working theft and trafficking cases, cars, firearms, stolen equipment. Animals, he admitted without embarrassment, were new territory. But the patterns aren't, he said calmly. He slid a thin folder across the table. Inside were photographs and reports Emma had not seen before. Puppies found near highways, abandoned crates behind rest stops, security footage of trucks stopping briefly, then accelerating back onto the road. All golden retrievers, Emma said quietly. Pure or near pure, Reed confirmed. High resale value, easy to move. Emma leaned closer. The trucks listed in the reports shared similarities: rental vehicles, temporary plates, routes that crossed state lines within hours. Texas to Oklahoma, Texas to Louisiana, sometimes farther. They disappear, Emma said. No shelters, no breeders reporting sales. Reed nodded. Which means they're being moved fast, sold before anyone notices they're missing. Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with air conditioning. The man behind it all didn't look like a criminal on paper. Raymond Harlan owned a chain of licensed transport companies, animal logistics, livestock hauling, ethical breeding partnerships. His public image was clean: church donations, sponsored youth rodeo events, smiling photographs with local officials. He's smart, Reed said. Keeps distance. Uses contractors, middlemen who don't know the full picture. Emma recognized the name. She had seen his logo on trucks passing through town before. Behind her, the clinic door creaked open. Sarah Collins stepped into the hallway, removing her gloves. She looked even thinner today, exhaustion sharpening her features. Her blonde hair had escaped its bun, strands clinging to her damp temples. Despite the fatigue, her posture remained composed, her movements precise. "Chance is stable," she said softly. Emma exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Still critical," Sarah added, "but stable." They spoke briefly before Sarah returned to the treatment room. Reed watched the exchange, something unreadable passing behind his eyes. "Those dogs," he said. "They're evidence now." Emma stiffened. "They're not objects." "I know," Reed said quickly. "But if Harlan's involved, he'll want them gone. Proof makes people nervous." That night, Emma drove home for the first time in days. Her apartment was quiet, the air stale. She barely noticed as she unlocked the door, dropped her bag, and collapsed onto the couch. Sleep came hard and shallow, filled with the sound of tires and the image of small bodies tumbling onto burning pavement. She woke to sunlight and a sinking feeling. Her car sat in the parking lot below, driver's side door slightly ajar. Emma ran down the stairs barefoot, heart pounding. The interior had been rifled through. The glove compartment hung open, papers scattered, nothing stolen that she could see. No electronics, no wallet. But the message was clear. Someone wanted her to know they could reach her. Emma reported it to Reed immediately. He listened without interruption, jaw tightening. "They're pushing," he said, "seeing if you'll back off." "I won't," Emma said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. Back at the clinic, she noticed a dark sedan idling across the street. It pulled away when she looked directly at it. Sonny wagged his tail weakly when she entered the room. Daisy barked again, stronger this time. Chance remained quiet, but when Emma touched the edge of his blanket, his paw twitched. She filmed none of it today. For the first time, fear outweighed the instinct to document. Reed increased patrols near the clinic, but resources were thin. Harlan's name stalled requests. Warrants took time. Time was the one thing Emma felt they didn't have. Late that evening, Reed returned with grim news. "One of the transport companies changed routes today," he said. "Moved everything overnight. Cleaned house." Emma stared at the puppies, then back at him. "Because of us." "Because of you," Reed corrected. "You made noise." Emma understood then that silence had been the safest thing, and the most dangerous. The puppies slept, unaware that their survival had placed a target on all of them. Emma sat beside them, shoulders tense, eyes fixed on the door, knowing with aching certainty that every step forward now came with a cost, and that stepping back would mean letting something monstrous keep moving unseen. The call came just after midnight. Emma was half asleep on a vinyl chair outside the clinic's intensive care room when her phone vibrated in her hand. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen in days. Lucas Meyer. Lucas had been her quietest source. Mid-30s, lean to the point of looking underfed, with sandy hair that never seemed fully combed and a habit of avoiding eye contact. He worked night shifts loading freight at a regional distribution hub, the kind of man people overlooked easily. Years earlier, a workplace accident had crushed 2 fingers on his left hand, leaving them stiff and slightly crooked. Since then, he trusted systems less and silence more. He had known things: routes, license plates, the way certain trucks moved animals instead of goods. Emma answered on the second ring. "Lucas?" she whispered. Silence. Then a sound wind, distant traffic. "I shouldn't have called," his voice finally said, strained and low. "They were here, asking questions." Emma sat up straight. "Where are you?" "I don't know how much time." The line went dead. Emma stared at the phone until the screen dimmed. By morning, Reed confirmed it. Lucas hadn't shown up for work. His apartment was empty, no signs of a struggle, just absence. "People disappear when they get scared," Reed said quietly, though his jaw was set hard, "or when someone helps them disappear." Emma felt the ground tilt beneath her. Inside the clinic, the alarm sounded. Chance's condition deteriorated rapidly. Internal bleeding, slow, insidious, had reached a point where waiting was no longer an option. Sarah Collins stood over the monitors, shoulders tight beneath her scrubs, hair pulled back with less care than usual. There was a faint tremor in her hands she didn't bother hiding. "He needs surgery," Sarah said. "Now, or he won't make it." Emma nodded, throat too tight for words. As preparations began, another complication emerged. Sonny, who had been stable for hours, spiked a fever. His breathing grew shallow, his small body trembling violently beneath the blankets. "Shock," Sarah explained. "The kind that hid behind improvement, then struck without warning." 2 lives tipping at once. Emma pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the treatment room, nails biting into her palms. She had reported on disasters, stood outside hospitals waiting for death notifications. She had never been this powerless. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. This time, there was no ambiguity. "You don't get to choose who survives." Attached was a photo, her car, parked outside the clinic, taken minutes ago. Then another message: "Walk away, or they pay." Emma's breath hitched. She felt suddenly exposed, watched from angles she couldn't see. She showed the messages to Reed. He swore under his breath, a rare crack in his controlled demeanor. "This just crossed a line," he said, "but it also means something else." "What?" Emma asked. "They're scared." Fear, Emma realized, cut both ways. Sarah emerged hours later, face drawn, eyes rimmed red. "Chance made it through surgery," she said softly. "Barely." Emma sagged against the wall in relief that felt more like pain. "And Sonny?" Emma asked. Sarah hesitated. "He's alive, but unstable." The night stretched on in fragments, waiting, pacing, the hum of machines that sounded too much like counting. Emma thought of Lucas, of the highway, of how easily lives could vanish without witnesses. She thought of stopping, of handing everything over, of letting someone else finish the story. But when Daisy woke, she dragged herself still clumsy, still broken across the enclosure until she reached the bars. She pressed her nose through them, eyes fixed on Emma, tail thumping once against the floor. It wasn't gratitude, it was recognition. Emma understood then that stopping wouldn't make her safer. It would only make everything that had happened meaningless. At dawn, she made the call. Tom Gallagher listened in silence as Emma laid it all out, the reports, the routes, Lucas's disappearance, the threats. Her voice shook, but she didn't soften anything. "If we publish," Tom said finally, "we go all in, no half measures." "I know," Emma replied. "I'm ready." By noon, the draft was live. Names, documents, patterns, not accusations evidence. Emma didn't feel brave when she hit publish. She felt afraid, exposed, and very, very tired. Outside the clinic, a crowd gathered again. This time, quieter, watchful. Inside, 3 small hearts continued to beat, uneven but stubborn. Emma sat between them and the door, phone face down beside her, fully aware that whatever came next would come because she refused to stay silent. The sirens this time were different. They did not fade into the distance or dissolve into indifference. They arrived in numbers unmarked SUVs, federal plates, coordinated movements that transformed quiet streets into controlled spaces. Emma watched from behind the clinic window as agents moved with practiced efficiency, radios murmuring, eyes scanning everything. Special Agent Daniel Cooper introduced himself inside the clinic. He was in his early 40s, tall and lean, with a clean-shaven face and sharp features softened by calm professionalism. His dark suit was plain, functional, the kind meant to disappear into crowds. There was nothing theatrical about him. His voice was steady, deliberate, someone accustomed to carrying bad news without flinching. "We've been tracking Harlan for months," Cooper said. "Your reporting accelerated things." Emma felt a strange mix of relief and dread. "Is it over?" Cooper met her gaze. "It's ending." The arrests happened across 3 states within hours. Transport hubs were sealed, trucks intercepted, contracts frozen. Raymond Harlan was taken from his office mid-morning, his confident smile faltering for the first time as federal agents read the charges. The respectable mask peeled away quickly under cameras and court documents. Detective Marcus Reed called Emma shortly after. His voice was hoarse, exhausted, but lighter than she had ever heard it. "They're all in custody," he said, "and your missing source Lucas was found, shaken but alive. They moved him when things got loud." Emma closed her eyes, a shaky breath escaping her. Inside the clinic, the world had narrowed to quieter victories. Sonny stood on his own for the first time 2 days later. His pale golden fur had begun to regain its softness, though scars and shaved patches marked where tubes once lived. He wobbled, ears too big for his head, tail thumping against the floor with unrestrained enthusiasm. Daisy's leg healed slower. The splint was replaced by a cast, white and awkward, but she adapted with stubborn determination. She learned to hop before she learned patience, her deeper gold coat catching the light whenever she followed Emma down the hallway. Chance took the longest. He slept through most days at first, ribs rising steadily now, the oxygen gone. When he finally opened his eyes fully, they were clearer, focused. He watched everything. His fur, darker than the others, lay flat and clean against his body for the first time since Emma met him. Sarah Collins knelt beside him, smiling, a rare, unguarded expression that softened the sharp lines of her face. "He's going to be strong," she said. "All of them are." Sarah herself looked different, less drawn, still tall and lean, still practical, but lighter. Saving them had taken something out of her and given something back. The clinic filled with visitors once the threat passed. Flowers, letters, children clutching handmade cards. Emma declined most interviews, choosing instead to stay close to the puppies as they relearned how to exist without fear. When the story aired nationally, Emma watched it alone, not because she wanted solitude, but because she needed to see it without noise. The facts were there, the patterns, the faces, but so were the puppy's small, stubborn symbols of something larger than crime. Tom Gallagher called her afterward. "You did good," he said simply. "No qualifiers, no warnings. Federal protection followed quietly." Emma noticed only in small ways a car that remained parked across from her apartment, a number she could call at any hour. Fear receded, not gone, but manageable. Weeks passed. Sonny learned to chase shadows. Daisy learned to balance. Chance learned to trust. One afternoon, Emma sat on the grass outside her apartment, the Texas sun warm but no longer cruel. The puppies tumbled around her, clumsy and joyful. Their fur gleamed, no longer matted with dust or blood. A woman walking past stopped. She smiled, then moved on. Emma thought of the highway, of the moment she could have kept driving. She understood now that the world didn't change all at once. It shifted because of small refusals to look away, to accept cruelty as inevitable. As the sun dipped lower, Emma gathered the puppies close. They pressed against her, solid and alive. No one had been left behind. Sometimes miracles don't arrive with thunder or light from the sky. Sometimes they arrive quietly through a single choice to stop, to care, to refuse to look away. Maybe God doesn't always change the road in front of us. Maybe He places something broken on it to see who will become the miracle. In our daily lives, we pass by pain every day on the street, online, in silence. And every time, we are given the same choice, to keep walking or to become the answer to a prayer we didn't hear spoken. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, because someone else may need this reminder today. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from or who you're praying for. And if you believe that kindness still matters, please subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the world. May God bless every soul watching. May He protect those who choose compassion. And may no one human or animal be left behind.